It is 7 p.m. and I will call this regular city council meeting to order. Please rise for the flag salute. Darren, if you'll start off.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll start off with roll call.
Councilmember Marcus. Present. Councilmember Ansich.
Present.
Councilmember Wenzel.
Present.
Councilmember Robinson.
Present.
And Councilmember Cummings is not here tonight. She's still enjoying her honeymoon, I believe. Yeah. So I know she's enjoying it, but I want to make sure that she was still there. So that was, is there a motion to excuse?
I'll make a motion to excuse.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to excuse Councilmember Cummings tonight. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? So passed. We have a guest speaker tonight. I will pass over this and make sure that it doesn't figure it out and see if that makes sure it doesn't show up anything. Perfect. Presentation tonight from the Chehalis Basin Authority. Flood Authority. I had to make sure I had board and authority in my head and
There's a lot of
one to pick which one. So Scott, you just introduce yourself to the crowd and then floor is yours.
Yeah, we'll do that after the presentation for the approval.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right, so I'm Scott Betcher and I'm staff to the Chehalis River Basin Flood Authority, and we've come before you in years past, and but it's been a number of years, and the Flood Authority is interested in kind of doing another round around all the local governments in the basin to give an update on who we are again and what we do since council members change in the different governments, et cetera. So I have about a 20-minute presentation, and I don't know if Vicki, you want to say anything for starters, given you are chair?
I'll let you start.
Okay. Or Darren, do you have anything you want to say? You are a representative to the Flood Authority?
Well, I just want to welcome Scott here this evening to give you a presentation, an update on what's been happening, and also Vicki Rains, who's the chair of our board, who represents Grays Harbor County, and welcome to both of you.
Thank you. Okay, so. Let me see if I can.
We can hit some of the lights too, if that makes.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, well, it's zoomed as best as it will be, so some of it will just be off the page a little bit, but. So I'll leave you several themes. One of the big ones is the whole flood process, the flood hazard reduction process that the Flood Authority is engaged in, and some of the larger efforts. They're really about two things: flood damage reduction and restoring aquatic species, flood and fish. And that marriage of those two concepts together has enabled some of what we're going to talk about to move forward in as successful a way as it has over the last decade or more. So flood and fish. So I want to talk about today the Flood Authority, but I'm going to make mention in brief discussion too of a couple other organizations that you might have heard about. One is the Office of Chehalis Basin, and the second is a whole effort called the Chehalis Basin Strategy. And then the last thing I want to touch base on, this flood process that we're engaged in is in state law. And the legislature, because of the 2007 flood and because of the fisheries issues in the basin, they want us to, and this is the quote from the state law, to aggressively pursue flood hazard reduction and aquatic species restoration. And so it's not too often the legislature is telling you to aggressively go after something. It's not recklessly, but it's very purposeful and directive. And so we hope to convey that sentiment here. So the Flood Authority, we were formed in 2008 in state law after the 2007 flood. Our focus is on the flood side largely. Our decision-making processes are informed by science. We intend to be collaborative in our process and protective of all basin residents with an eye towards environmentally appropriate solutions. You can see the jurisdictions that are represented, the 3 counties, Grace Harbor, Lewis, and Thurston, and the cities underneath. Largely, everybody began in 2008. Cosmopolis joined in 2011. Hopefully in the 2017, Napavine was 2011. So we do 3 things that the Flood Authority does, and I'm going to go through those. Number 1 is what we call our local projects program. And then number 2, later I'll describe, is our flood warning system. And then number 3 is our role is an advocate for you all, the basin residents and basin governments. So under the topic of local projects, since about 2012, we've run a program that has put out in the kind of the red square there. It's been funded at about 5 million the first year, 10 million, 15 million, 9 million, 6 million, and then 4 million this last biennium. And it's been focused on local projects. And local projects are projects that kind of help provide resiliency within our communities. So for example, and we'll talk more about it, we've protected wastewater treatment plants because you need them post-disaster. We've protected drinking water supplies because wells, if they get inundated with flood water, have to be taken offline until they're deemed safe again. We've done a whole number of community projects, like we'll talk about here in the Mill Creek Dam, for example. So local projects are projects that are not of the scale of like the big dam you've heard about, the flood retention structure. These are smaller and deliverable on a tighter time scale. So the average cost is about $700,000 for a local project. They take about 2 years to do on average. Some of them are larger in scale. The Mill Creek Dam was a large project, but then some of them are smaller. Like, for example, in the picture on the bottom, you see an enlarged culvert. That's an Adna. That was a smaller culvert. It all backed up in 2007 and it wiped out Adna. Now the water flows through out onto the floodplain. So it was a small project for $150,000 at the time, but it really provided significant and meaningful flood relief. So I want to go through just kind of in closer detail some local projects that are kind of in the lower basin that I think you might find interesting. The first, obviously, Cosmopolis, the Mill Creek Dam. That was the first phase of a 2-phase project. The second phase right now is underway with looking at 4,500 feet of Mill Creek for culverts and how best to evacuate floodwaters. Darren is running a study right now, and that will then in time generate a project. So this was a important project for your city. And it's also an important project because it showed that the dam can be built with fish in mind, and it wasn't necessarily the absolute barrier as some people like to believe. So kind of more state of the art for today's world. Another significant local project, we've done a lot of work in Montesano, starting in 2014 with, at that time it was Mary's River Lumber, and let's see if my cursor will show. Okay, so in 2014, we were looking at the situation where the Chehalis River was going around the bend and running alongside Mary's River, but we saw that this was thinning and potentially going to be cut off. So a project to protect this shoreline with sheet pile to protect this important industrial area was taken. And here is a picture in 2022 where in fact it has broken through. And so the full force of the Chehalis River now hits it headlong. And there is a protective measure in place of sheet pile that goes down to bedrock. So it won't take away that facility. So it was a proactive project to protect this important piece of economic infrastructure. Likewise, this was a small wall that was placed around the wastewater treatment plant to keep the flood water from going into the treatment plant. In 2007, it was within a few inches of going into the treatment plant and washing all of that sewage down your direction. We did another project on the Wynoochee side of the wastewater treatment plant, where the river, the Wynoochee, was coming headlong at the wastewater treatment plant. This is in 2017. And there was a deep scour pool here. And that scour pool meant that the river was never going to leave. In fact, the river is trying to find its way to go around the treatment plant. And we were tracking the erosion that was occurring. And so there was a real significant concern that this treatment plant could be breached by flooding the Wynoochee River and then all come down again your way. We did a whole series of log jacks, they're called. They were placed in front of the treatment plant. And not only were they protective, but they had the effect of creating friction and roughness, which caused the river to drop its sediment and seek a new path of least resistance. And the river has actually now started moving away from the treatment plant. And if you talk to Kevin, who's been the treatment plant operator there for 30 years, he's watched Wynoochee come, and now he's watching it retreat. And it's just a super successful project that for $2 million, we protected a treatment plant that would have easily been $60 million and an environmental disaster to replace. The governor came out this summer and was quite impressed with the project. And so we feel very good about that. Another project and sort of in your area, a lot of busyness here, but it's the lower Satsup. From Keys Road down to the mouth of the Chehalis, it had been facing a whole significant amounts of erosion on the Keys Road side, as well as on the agricultural farmland side. So a whole series of projects have been undertaken. In 2020, structures were placed, wood structures to protect Keys Road and the Port of Grace Harbor as well. Likewise, the Department of Fish and Wildlife removed the dikes that was around the old ponds here, and we also removed riprap that was here. Right now, you can see examples where the river now is starting to re-access the floodplain where it hasn't been in about 50 years. But easily 30 to 40% of the floodplain has been inaccessible to the Satsup River for quite some time. We're seeing now the river's going back into there. This is protected. This was eroding at about 80 feet a year. We figured we had about 1 year left before it hit the road. And then, like rivers do, they find the path of least resistance. It started working very heavily on these silty agricultural soils and washing prime farmland out into the Chehalis. These structures were placed. They tumbled in and locked themselves at the toe. And we had a tour last week of the scientists who went out there, and everyone was very pleased to see how these structures have fallen at the toe and anchored themselves. We feel we've sort of arrested what was really a drastic situation.
So can I make a comment?
Yeah.
On the lower left photo down there, if you just to put it in perspective, if you go along there, we point in with your cursor, just so people understand where this is actually at, Chapman's.
Yeah.
Portion. So if you've been
This is
out to
Chapman's.
Chapman Farms, in the lower picture though, where is the prior to where the emulsion is, or is it down to the right more?
Oh, so this was the emulsion. So what Vicky is saying, in 2018, the river was more sinuous and it came down and went this way. Okay. And then there was an emulsion that cut off his neck. In other words, the river decided to just go straight. So it took and it lost 3,000 feet of length, and it became just a torrent of water, very aggressive, and large trees were snapping, moving, and that the river really wants to become straight, and it just wants to go through that farmland and right down to the Chehalis. And so this is what Vicky's talking about, that this was cut off. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. And then we saw that when you talk about the 3,000 feet that washed away, a lot of that was Chapman Farms area
Yep.
that came in. And when you see those log piles that have rolled off from the top and down into the water on the bottom, that's very, very similar to what was done around the sewage treatment plant in Montesano, where it was up on the ground, and then when the water eroded, the river eroded it away, it just came in and placed itself right at the base of the river, and then the synergy will deflect and it'll go back out. The other photo, which I think is really interesting, if you could go back to 107, I kind of waved if you didn't see me.
Oh.
Earlier, one right there. So you see where the top photo where the arrow is, where we across from Mary's River, we put in the sheet pile wall. And you can see over to the right that river came through and kind of left an island up towards the top. We did that to help with the Marys River lumber mill, but not as much as we did it to protect Highway 107 from being taken out, because that was a larger threat than the mill was.
Yeah.
And it was, that particular project is important to me because when I was sitting in Kyle's chair, Darren and I made a deal that we knew that was gonna go, that we gave up our Mill Creek Dam funds to go to that project and have it fixed, and we waited another cycle or two to get that funding back for the dam. And that's the reason why, is we knew that if something wasn't done along that way, and we had to order, that sheet piling came from Germany, I believe,
Luxembourg.
but if we hadn't done that, we definitely would have lost the mill that's there, but it also would have compromised Highway 107 and access out that area. And then how far out is the treatment plant? It's not that far.
Yeah.
So it's really important that we did that, and it was money well spent, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that point, that action of Vicky back in 2010, 11, 12, I guess, to step away from money that was quote unquote hers, yours, and share it, has set a tone for this whole process, and the collaboration that has ensued as a result of that model has resulted in all these projects. And so we're all very, very lucky to be in circumstance where we are with this kind of a collaborative process. Another project in your area that's underway right now. The Port of Grace Harbor has their Hall Road, which I think is an extension of Minkler Road. Yeah, for that area. Anyway, one thing too. When we said aggressive erosion, we started this project last winter. And by the time we finished the project, it had eroded another 180 feet. And so the engineers and this construction company,
It was
Brumfield, I mean, they were just adapting on the fly 100% of the time. It was quite remarkable. And then, oh, by the way, we had a big flood in January.
Well, it was phased, so we thought we were ahead of the game. We started phase 1, and then we had to throw in an emergency.
So another project that's an erosion project is the Port of Grace Harbor Hall Road, the Minkler Road extension. The Chehalis River, right in here, is the river comes down. The SATS dumps in up here. The river comes down here, and it's been hitting this area very, very hard. There was not much. There was really concern that it wasn't going to make it through this winter. So we're doing an emergency project. The regulatory agencies all agreed to it, and these timbers were driven last week, and they will be affixing to it this week a whole series of other log structures. And again, the wood is intended to dampen the energy, have the river drop its sediment, bounce off and go somewhere else, different than riprap, but something that the regulatory agencies and the tribes all are very supportive of. And what you see here is the fabric from when they built, when the WIPS facility was going under construction. There's a 42-inch water main in here that supplies water to Grace Harbor Energy. And then there's also 5 4-inch diameter electrical cables that were the pumps. And so it's infrastructure that can't be moved on the fly. And it has to be protected. So, and then on a much smaller scale, this is just a project that we did this past September on Pope Island Creek, where a homeowner bought a home, didn't understand, and the river was within 30 feet of their drain field, and threatening to move quickly. And so we did a project where we shared funding and put logs in, and it made it through the flood season very well, and very helpful. So I'm going to switch to Upper Chehalis, and then we'll come down to you. This is a project where we put a pump in the airport. The airport pump in the 2007 flood, it failed, and the levee that surrounds the airport was filling up like a bathtub. And so they had to take a dozer and breach the levee to let the water out because the emergency responders needed the airfield. That sent a torrent of water elsewhere. The pump at that point in time was 1940s era pump in a wetland. The new pump is above ground. It has a backup generator system, has 2 pumps to it, dual pump. And during this past flood that we had in January, it pumped something of the order of hundreds and hundreds of millions of gallons of water. The key thing about this, and this will get back to my next slide, the pump costs $1.1 million. The annual revenues is off the screen are $9 million back to the state. So you're asking the state for $1 million so that you can guarantee 9 million back to the state. I mean, flood hazard reduction is very cost effective for the state. And it keeps that revenue flowing, and it keeps that facility open. This is relevant to you all because down in Aberdeen and Hoquiam, and then extending over towards Mill Creek, you're about as low as it gets in the basin. And the only real solution for you is pumps. Pumps in a big way are super important. Right now, we have a request for our local projects program for the next biennium. And in the lower basin, the funding requests are all for pumps. Right now, that tallies about $16 million for pumps. And so it will be kind of my job as staff, the Flood Authority, and Darren and others to make the case for why this should be funded. And I really do believe that, you know, keeping these basins dry and the economies going generates back to the state a payback that is very quick. Okay, the second thing I want to talk about is our flood warning system. That's just a series of local projects that were in kind of the lower basin that you might be interested in. The second piece the Flood Authority is really proud about is our flood warning system. In 2007, the National Weather Service didn't forecast the severity of the storm that was coming, nor did they forecast the resultant precipitation that was going to fall and fill up the rivers. In 2010, the Flood Authority in earnest started on a flood warning system. The upper left here, all those dots are gauges, river gauges, weather stations, stream gauges. Those are all now tied together with radio telemetry, and they provide a continual contact with the National Weather Service. So when the Weather Service makes a forecast, it's constantly being informed and recalibrated by what's happening on the ground. There is no gap in delay to what's happening on the ground. And so you, as the user, can go to our flood warning system, log in, and look at any one of those gauges and understand what's happening in your area, upstream or downstream. Here's just a picture of the kind of sophistication of the gauges. One new one that came online, we put a stream gauge down at the Wichita River. Aberdeen did. And then we also put a webcam. And this is what you will see now through the webcam. So when someone tells you, if you're new to the area and they say it's going to flood at 8, no one knows what 8 is or what 10 is or what 12 is. But you can go to the webcam and you can see that, you know, 10 would put us up right here. 12 would put us up there in relationship to the Heron Street Bridge.
And that's the Heron Street Bridge. That's just the zoomed in of that other one.
Yep, just zoomed in. So we're hoping, we've got 4 webcams around the basin, and we're hoping that this is a way for, because not everybody was here in 2007, nor do they know. And if we want, you know, if we build the levee, North Shore levee, and the economy turns around and people move here, they're not going to have that institutional knowledge. And so this is a way to make people, our tagline is be aware, be prepared. You know, you don't need to wait for emergency responders. You can have information yourself and decide. Our flood warning system was really tested last December, January, and these are just busy graphs, but all these spikes, that's usage. In fact, this is showing that our portion of a website was used, had 75,000 hits over a 3-day period of time. What we found was the biggest proponents of our flood warning system that got the word out for us was the Chronicle Facebook page and also the Emergency Management Department's Facebook page, saying, hey, citizens, go to the ChehanesRiverFlood.com and watch what's happening. And we were very, very satisfied with that. So the third thing that we do is we are your advocate. It's my job as staff to the government's on the flood authority to help Darren's projects make it into the budget, to help Aberdeen and Hope Wind's projects make it into the budget. Not every project does, but we try to make the strong case about how investing in these local projects protects our basin communities immediately with good payback value to the state. So we exist in a larger structure and it's a structure that has evolved over the years. From 2008 until about 2016, it was just pretty much the flood authority. In 2016, an office of Chehalis Basin was created that's housed at the Department of Ecology. And then that office of Chehalis Basin is sort of more of a formalized interaction with a board called the Chehalis Basin Board. Vicki is on the board as chair of that too. And it is sort of up the kind of, not the legitimacy, but up just the kind of the profile and stature. The network of partners. So what the Chehalis Basin Flood Authority appoints 3 members to the basin board. And then the Office of Chehalis Basin is the administrative agent for that board. This network of partners, which this is what I think is so cool. So this is a busy slide with lots of logos. These are all the organizations that are working together. And truthfully, it is together. And it you know, there are differences. Of course, there's going to be differences. But if you were to step back and look at the degree of collaboration versus the degree of acrimony, it is so much more on the collaborative end of the spectrum. And that as a result has enabled the budgets to continue to flow. The process right now has sustained 70 million last biennium, 75 million the biennium before, 50 million before that. Now they're looking at a whole host of things. They're looking at the big dam proposal in the upper basin, but that has enabled also all these local projects to happen. And if you were to ask anyone, the basin is so much more ready and prepared for flooding than we were in 2007. And it's because of this process. And those actions like Vicki had done in 2010 or 11, where she forwarded the money for the Mill Creek Dam. So looking ahead, the big one everybody wants to know is what's going to happen with the dam proposal. It's still in the environmental review process at the federal level and the state level. The draft EISs were issued nearly a year ago, and they are working towards finalization late 22, early 2023. There are outstanding issues about fish. There are outstanding issues about seismic safety, cultural resources, and some other matters like that. But the parties are all working diligently to address those issues and to see which ones really are unmitigable. In other words, they can't be addressed. Local projects is underway right now. We're evaluating the $25 million in requests that is before us. We have to have a list into the governor's budget by December. We are also right now tuning up our flood warning system to get ready for the flood season. So here are the key contacts. Vicki is chair of the Flood Authority and also the Basin Board. And the fund is vice chair of the Flood Authority. She's a member on the Chehalis Basin Board. Darren is your representative from Cosmopolis, and he's also on our projects committee. And then I'm the staff person. So. whew, I just sort of.
That was very informative. Thank you.
Other questions?
Council, any questions, comments? Yeah.
I'll send the link.
Perfect.
If you don't have, if the city doesn't have the early warning system link on your webpage, I think you might already. It's listed on the counties under the emergency management section, but I would include it just and advertise it on your Facebook page so that when we have the next rain event, because we will, that people can look ahead and kind of be prepared on where they are, where their family is, that type of thing.
And it is on the, I was say, we just did a new website, so I want to make sure, but it is under there, under the kind of emergency management tab, so.
Awesome.
And we're gonna be, another thing about the flood warning system, is you can sign up for email alerts. So you can specify which gauge you want, and then you'll get an email when the gauge is reporting levels at, we set them somewhere between a foot and 2 feet below, flood stage to give you plenty of time.
I think I'm signed up for as many as I could.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting because then you get an email. It's like, oh, it's flooding in the upper basin. And then you get another email, oh, it's happening in the mid basin. And you can just sort of see that progression of the water. So
Yeah, if you're just doing the one that's just next to your house, it's best to,
don't do the one
Like,
just below.
yeah,
downstream.
exactly. It's nice to know what's happening in Bakota as much as it is in Hoquiam.
Or Grand Mountain.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
thank you.
Is there any, the pumps for Mill Creek? Where is that on the schedule?
We're gonna talk about it next. The next is a lead up to that.
Thank you again.
Oh, that's the wrong one.
Yeah. And next up is approval of agenda. And I'm asking for an addition to this as well. It is in the packet, but it is a joint resolution between the cities of Aberdeen, Hoquiam, and Cosmopolis on state capital budget requests. It is in the council's packet, but I'm asking that be added as item D on the agenda, if the council so sees fit.
I'll make a motion to add that as item D in the agenda.
It has been moved and seconded, moved by Councilmember Wenzel, seconded by Councilmember Ansich to add that item D to the agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none on the addition, all in favor? Any opposed? So passed on the agenda as amended. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? So passed. Thank you. Moving on to public comments. This is a period, this is public comment on agenda items. And Scott, you're more than welcome to hang out and
I'll sit for a minute.
sit for as long as you want and as short as you want, but thank you again. And if the council has any questions, we can get you in contact, talk to Vicky, or we can get you to Scott's email and any questions and concerns outside as well. Public comment period for agenda items. If the public has any comments on the agenda items, now is your time to speak. Ask again that you try to keep it to 3 minutes or so, but the time is yours. Commissioner Rains.
Vicky Rains, 7 Trinity Way, Cosmopolis. I just want to comment in support of the resolution by the 3 cities for the Joint Surface Water Management Comprehensive Plan. I think it shows a real collaborative effort between all jurisdictions and something that is needed. We have a lot of times we've seen over the years us trying to do things independently, and I think that the more that we can collaborate on things and partner on things, I think will be better. One, it will reduce duplication, and it will provide a work that is comprehensive enough to cover this entire area versus just Cosmopolis doing their own work and the other cities. So I encourage the council to make sure they review that and support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on agenda items? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda, claims vouchers and meeting minutes from the August 17th meeting. The council's had the chance to review the vouchers and the minutes. What's the pleasure?
Make a motion to approve.
A move by Councilmember Ansich, second by Councilmember Marcus to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor. Any opposed? So passed. Just realized I forgot my cheat sheet. Committee reports. We will start with public safety.
No meeting, no report.
Public works.
I second that. No meeting, no report.
Our parks chair is on her honeymoon, so I'm gonna assume that follows as well. Finance subcommittee,
No meeting, no report.
I'm missing anybody?
No.
Moving on to city official reports. We will start with you, Darren.
Thank you, Mayor. I pretty much have everything under new business. So the only other thing I want to comment on is October 3rd, that Monday, City Hall will be returning to a 5-day schedule. No longer a 4-10 schedule. So now that COVID, all that stuff is done, we're going to go back to our previous schedule.
Thank you. Public Works Superintendent, Nations, you're up.
I had a couple things. I wanted to thank the Causey School maintenance crew. I wasn't here last council meeting for painting all the crosswalks, the stop bars, the no parking zones and stuff like that. They volunteered to do that. We went and bought some paint, made a template, and they volunteered to do that, and I wanted to thank them. Also, Ed Van Sickle, I thanked him for I don't know how many years, but he's at least 50 hours a month just helping us out. And he does his own, a lot of times does his own thing and then helps us when we need help. We really appreciate it. I'm gonna continue to take it.
Yeah.
So anyways, it's gonna be like a broken record. Highland Park, I don't know if everybody's looked at that at all, but Linda Springer is done a lot of things up there. The city, we've been doing a lot up there as well. Hydro seeding is looking like it's gonna be next week. And then the last section of paving should happen within a week or two as well. So we got a few more pieces to put up, but we're just doing it as we have time, and they're hoping for a grand opening soon, and we're still waiting for parts, but we're just putting them in as we get them, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Our police chief unfortunately is not unable to be here today. We'll go to City Attorney Steve Johnson.
I have no report, Mr. Mayor.
And we will jump on to mayor's report. I'll try to keep it brief. As far as the RFA Planning Committee, we haven't met since the last meeting of the council, but we did have a couple workshops for Cosmopolis residents to kind of learn more. And so thank you to Chief Miller and for the public for coming out to those. A lot of great questions, a lot of great interactions, and thank you everyone who asked questions and gave comments outside as well, reached out to us either in person or email. So we had a lot of discussion. So it was good to hear a lot from the community on that. I had the chance to speak this week at the Retired Senior Volunteer Program. It was an appreciation event at the Aberdeen Senior Center. They invited the mayors to come and just kind of be a part of it. And I was the only one that schedule worked out right, but it was great to be there for RSVP. They've been doing it for 30 some years and just great volunteer effort that they put out. So it was nice to be able to be there in person and thank them for what they do. As Darren had mentioned, City Hall is going to go back to regular schedule as far as the local state of emergency within the city. As soon as it drops in the state, it's going to drop here as well. We're just coinciding with that. And as soon as they do it, we'll go back to business as normal, I guess, as it was. So any of the adjustments that were made, including the city hall hours and anything like that, that will go back to normal prior to pandemic. Old business. Central Grace Harbor Regional Fire Authority. This is kind of a notation from the council if we want to continue on or not with the planning committee and continue on that with members of Cosmopolis. Would the council like an executive session to discuss this and clear out any air or any further? I know we had a lot of discussion at the meetings, but there's an opportunity for that if there's the executive sessions for the next thing. Never mind. I take that back. So as far as the Regional Fire Authority and the Planning Committee, does the council have any pleasure on moving forward what the city does?
I make a motion that we move forward with the planning commission. For the Grace Harbor Regional Authority.
A second.
Moved by Councilmember Marcus and seconded by Councilmember Wenzel to continue as a part of the Central Grace Harbor Regional Fire Authority Planning Committee. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor? Any opposed? So passed. Next meeting of that committee is tomorrow as well. And across the parking lot at the fire hall. So
What time is it?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
And there was notice given out, posted and, yeah, there's notice out there of that as well. But anybody that's listening right now, 6 o'clock, Thursday, the 23rd, 22nd, 22nd, at Cosmopolis Fire Station. So now is the executive session portion to discuss sale or lease of real estate as per RCW 42.30.110(1)(c), an acquisition of real estate per RCW 42.30.110(1)(b). We are going to go into an executive session on this. Shouldn't need too long. 10 minutes? Yeah, we're gonna enter into an executive session for 10 minutes. And we will return at 7:53. So we just have to ask the members of the public, step outside for a moment and we'll come back in 10. It is 7:53 and we will join in or we will rejoin the meeting out of executive session, move on to new business. Item A, DNR agreement.
Yeah, this is an agreement between the city of Cosmopolis and DNR that would reimburse the city of Cosmopolis if our fire department were to ever perform services on a DNR supervised event. We don't have any DNR lands in Cosmopolis, but if we were to have our staff go respond to an event outside our city limits under their supervision, then we could get reimbursed for our time and expenses. So this was something that Grace Harbor Emergency Management had suggested we do, and talking with Nick Valley. I think this is something that could be good. And we may have had one years ago, I don't recall. I know we have helped them in the past, but I think this is something that we should do to help recover our costs.
Just a period where council can have comment on it. as well.
Yes.
So this is just another one of those steps that we need to take for the fire department in progressing it further. Obviously getting members as well, but having these other things such as this DNR agreement in place puts us on a better pathway. So.
What is, yes, request for action. So what is the council's pleasure on signing this DNR agreement or this agreement with the Department of Natural Resources?
Go ahead.
I make a motion, we sign this agreement.
Moved by Councilmember Robinson, second by Councilmember Marcus to sign the agreement with the Department of Natural Resources. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? So passed. Item B, quit claim deed with Friendly Village Associates of Olympia. And if anybody was watching on Zoom during the executive session, one of the other reasons that not having Julie here is important. Turned off the recording, didn't turn off the camera, didn't turn off the mic. So you may have seen some of that executive session. So that's absolutely 100% on me on that one. But this is regarding property that the Friendly Village Associates of Olympia and I probably more commonly the Druzianich family. There is land on city limits that they would like to donate to the city of Cosmopolis, similar to how the Makarenko land got to us, that they would like to donate it with the expressed intent that it is and it will remain a parkland area. It's approximately 24 acres of land, and it's again right at the northern side of town. But what is the council's pleasure?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this quitclaim deed on the Friendly Village Associates property.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded to sign this quitclaim deed, and as part of this, I would recommend that if we can amend that motion to sign it pending an ESA survey of the land as far as environmental, and of course, upon approval of the Friendly Village Associates, if that is acceptable to your motion.
I will accept that amendment to the motion.
Second again. It has been moved and seconded to sign this quitclaim deed with Friendly Village Associates of Olympia. Do we need to read quitclaim deed? Is that, let's see, it's just a bunch of words on how to, on how the parcel is lined out, but any discussion?
I would just like to say, I think this is important to continue our preservation of green spaces in communities. We obviously don't want a big paved parking lot as a town, so having this opportunity for the city to keep a green space in our city limits, I think is tremendous, and very thankful for this offer to the city.
And one thing I will add, I mean, speaking to the family and the people behind the partnership that's wanting to donate this, they do have some preferences of what they would like to see, including kind of naming, and we're working out the exact names, but they're donating this property. We're more than happy to put their name on it as part of the city of Cosmopolis, and they have a couple ideas of what they would like to see there until we kind of do a survey and do a good walkthrough of what it can be. But any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? So passed. Item C, animal control agreement, the interlocal agreement for animal control services between the city of Cosmopolis and the city of Aberdeen. And speaking to the police chief, and unfortunately he's not able to be here to say it himself, he looked over it, and it is by all and large just an extension of the one they already have in place, just re-signed. He did not see and did not make any note of anything that was changed. So what is the council's pleasure?
I make a motion that we accept the animal control agreement.
I'll second that.
Moved by Councilmember Marcus, seconded by Councilmember Robinson to sign the animal control agreement between the cities of Cosmopolis and the city of Aberdeen. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? So passed. Item D, which was added to the agenda, the joint comprehensive plan or the joint resolution between the cities of Aberdeen, Cosmopolis, and Hoquiam You want to read the at least the title by title only, if the council's okay with that?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know, just the highlighted section probably.
This is a joint resolution of the city council of the cities of Aberdeen, Cosmopolis, and Hoquiam committing city personnel necessary to ensure 2023 through 2025 state capital budget decision makers have the confidence and assurance they need to fully fund all pump-related plans and projects described here within. And it's my understanding this will be before the Hoboken City Council on Monday and the Aberdeen City Council a week from today.
And as Scott had mentioned earlier, this kind of lays out the priorities of the combined cities to further ensure that have that power behind, and a lot of voices making a lot of noise for these. So what is the council's pleasure?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the joint resolution as submitted.
Second,
It has been moved and seconded, moved by Councilmember Wenzel. I'll give that one to Jim. You seconded that, correct?
Yes.
Seconded by Councilmember Ansich to sign the joint resolution between Cosmopolis, Aberdeen, and Hoquiam. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? So passed. Thank you, Scott. And I'll get that signed early next week once Julie gets back in, but well before Aberdeen is able to sign theirs.
Our mayor, probably before Monday night when Wilton does theirs. Once you sign it, you'll get tested, we can send it over.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. Yeah. Council comments this evening. We'll start in the light over there. Councilmember Marcus.
I just really appreciated Scott's presentation. And the movement forward of the VNR, the Regional Fire Authority. We're moving forward and it's really nice.
Thank you. Councilman Wenzel in your temporary seat.
Right. Yeah, I just want to commend all the volunteers that have been coming out to the Highlands Park up on my hill up there on Dundee there. I think it was last week when we were in the RFA public meeting. They had over 25 volunteers come out and rake and use wheelbarrows and move chips and everything. It's incredible how it's gone from a couple people working on it to a whole community, and I think even people from Aberdeen even chipping in on it. So it's just amazing. You know, it hasn't even been a year of all the progress that's happened, and it looks amazing. If you haven't been up there yet and driven by, it's not open yet, it's opening soon, but if you drive by, it's just amazing what it looks like now. You know, it just used to be a clump of grass and some swings, so it's pretty incredible when we have a community that works together, make things happen like that. It's awesome. Otherwise, just real quick comment on the RFA meetings. I'm really appreciative of all the community members that have reached out to us. Kyle Sana and I are on the RFA committee with members from Hoquiam and Aberdeen. A lot of work has gone into this at those meetings, and then the public meetings we've had and the one we're having tomorrow here in Causey. Just appreciate all the staff from all the different communities and the public input from the process so far. That's what I got.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Councilman Robinson.
Just a couple things.
Perfect.
I've been here, my first meeting now, but between my indoctrination into the council and today, I've had a lot of community members come and ask me various things. The biggest issue, I think, for us, I'm sorry the chief's not here, but is the speed along Stanford Boulevard from Manaraco Park all the way to, never get that name right. Altamont, yeah. I mean, and literally, I have called law enforcement on four-wheelers that go by 40, 50 miles an hour. They're not supposed to be on the street anyway. But there's just people in the park up above Manaraco there. They come down, they just go right around the stop. They don't even stop. They don't even slow down around the stops. There's a motorcyclist that comes down there. And as soon as he gets around the corner, he guns it. I went by my house the other night, and I'm gonna say at least 60 miles an hour. And, you know, we don't have a lot of kids, but there are kids, there's animals, there's people walking along the street. And these people, and the cars go 40 and 50. There's many of them that go 35 easily every time they go by, going in and out of Manaraco Park or to the. I think there's, you know, something going on down there, I'm sure there probably is. But it's really safety hazard galore. And you know, I complain enough about the 724 garbage dump. Just keeps piling stuff up in front of their house, and it just seems like no matter what anybody does, they don't get anywhere, but people are complaining about that. So I'm bringing it to the council and putting it on record that I did make comments about it, so and then I believe we have a park going up right across from the cemetery there on. And I don't know what the name of that is, because Manaraco has a name, Highland has a name, but I'm not sure what that.
It's technically Terrace, Olympic Terrace, Olympic Terrace Park, but colloquially it's Cemetery Park. Yeah, I think that's,
What is it?
It was the horsey part when the kids were going
The
on.
Horsey Park.
so.
There were two little
it's-
horses that you could ride on.
Oh,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
officially it's,
there's a gentleman that's up there every day working on it. I know.
oh, I was gonna say.
I just want to say
we-
thank you.
Yeah.
It's looking great, and we kind of thought, because we're new to the area and stuff, we thought maybe it was your park. I don't. I was kind of getting around as the next part. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Anyway, you're doing a great job up there, and it looks like you've got all kinds of help. Not a soul, except you. But
I work go good by myself.
well, I've noticed that, so I really haven't, anyway. So thank you very much for doing what you're doing there, because it's gonna look a whole lot better than it did. So I just wanted to say, thank you.
and public comments this evening, council or the public can comment on anything you want, and try to limit it. But I don't know, you already got one. Your floor is yours.
Ed Van Sickle, 135 Waller Drive. I want to mention grass clippings in the street drainage ditch in front of 524, 603, and 612 Woodside Road. They're in violation of ordinance 7.16.010. Owners are required to remove all grass which can constitute a fire hazard or menace to public. So I'm requesting the mayor of the city council to proceed according to ordinance 7.16.020 abatement procedure, since the owner has not complied with ordinance 7.16.010 removal of vegetation.
I believe Mr. Seedorf made contact with them,
Okay.
so it should be in the process.
And we'll make sure the chief's on that as well as that. I know the chief is well aware of those as well, but we'll make sure it's done.
Great.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Yes,
I just
Commissioner
wanted
Reitz.
to quickly thank those involved in the RFA discussion. I know that I took part years ago, and I think it's a worthwhile cause to discuss and hopefully come to some resolution as to whether Cosmopolis should participate or not. I think it's very important for us to look and collaborate with our sister cities. Then I wanted to just also acknowledge Linda Springer. I spoke with her a couple of times, and the tremendous work going on in Highland Park on mine, Christina, and Jim's Hill. And there's
And Miles.
I know, I'm. He said his hill. But it looks great. It's gonna be a great addition up there and just, of course, Ed, you've done a lot and always have for so many years. So thank you very much for that.
It's been your hill for like a month and a half now.
What's that?
It's been your hill for like a month and a half.
I got seniority up there, sorry.
Yeah. Any,
Or Kyle.
any other comments from the public?
Speed limit signs?
Nate, just for the record, name for the record.
Oh, Susan Robbins.
Thank you.
Speed limit signs, they've been promised.
On stand.
We got them about a week and a half ago.
I'll put 'em up.
So,
I want them going this way also, not
oh, really?
this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like them.
You want to
out
paint
there.
there?
Yeah. Right in the middle.
Old man, woman, it, whatever. I've had it. And one gal, I yelled out, slow down, and she flipped me off and she broke
Oh,
it.
geez.
And she was moving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely resident.
Matt Miller, 1013 Dewey. Just want to say thank you for your approval tonight. Appreciate it. I think Vicky was saying it best when she first started talking about the recent agreement you guys just voted on tonight of the collaboration between the three cities. And this is just another step in that. I think it's a long-term, long run. It's a good thing. However, with all that, all you did tonight was vote to be part of the committee. We still have a whole bunch more work to go over the next however many months to convince our citizens that this is a good thing in the long run. And it's good for Tazi, Aberdeen, and Hopewell all the way across. So just because you approved it tonight doesn't mean we're over. So we got a long road ahead of us, but I think it's for a good purpose and a good.
It's one for me.
That's his one.
You want to claim a hill while we're going around?
I am on the Cemetery Hill. So I think you might. Or by Mercy Park.
Yeah, Horsey Park. Now I know which park.
Thank you. Any other comment from the public? Sir.
Steve Davis, 825 Fifth. On the city council tonight was brought up with a bunch of documents. One of them was the DNR agreement for the fire department to join the DNR agreement. I'm just curious, you don't have to answer this, but I'm curious how many of the council reviewed the document before they voted on it. And in here, there's training, there's costs to the city, but there's also insurance costs and things like that along with this. And we have had other agreements in the past with Department of Natural Resources and worked well with them. But my point of that is along with the RFA, is at the RFA meeting, we hear the rumblings and we hear misinformation, things have been passed along. The RFA right now is a pivotal point. We don't have a fire department in Cosmopolis. We're able to pull together and in a short period of time renovate a park in Cosmopolis with nearly $100,000 in grants and things that we received, and a lot of work and effort and everybody by the city and by citizens and things like that to get a park going. But we haven't been able to do that with our fire department. And I think that I'm imploring the city council to please set aside some time to meet with the former members of the Cosmopolis Fire Department, take the issues that were submitted by them as grievances, go through each one, have that satisfied and moved along, and then get the fire departments back into activity. Part of the RFA is a volunteer fire department in Cosmopolis. And if you proceed in the RFA without a resolution around them, I just wonder what's the point? In Grace Harbor right now, our emergency services is at a critical tipping point. We have a hospital, we have transporting agencies, we have private agencies that can't do the work and get paid for it in a timely fashion. They're going away. We need a cohesive effort right now more than ever to pull together and get Cosmopolis Fire Department back on track. We've asked, we've gone publicly at public meetings, we've asked and asked for this to happen, and it hasn't. So I'm asking again, in a public format, as a new council member, Mr. Robinson said, I'm saying in a public format, let's spend a little bit of time, put together a committee. You got a public safety committee, get a couple representatives from the old former fire department, and get a couple new members from the city to join up, put together a plan and sit down and talk through this stuff and get it handled so we can move forward and get the fire department back in Cosmopolis. It's vitally important to not only Cosmopolis, but Aberdeen Hopewell. The union recently put on the website on Facebook, they had a picture of 3 ambulances, Aberdeen, 3 ambulances at the hospital. And it said, 6 of our 9 personnel, 6 of our 9 personnel are at the hospital right now. At least 3 members to cover Aberdeen and Cosmopolis, including the prison. We have an RFA that we're proposing that says we're not going to hire anybody new. Come on. You know, you have an opportunity to have a full firehouse of volunteers that can be part of that RFA. Please, reach out, get this tidied up. People say we can't go backwards. I've heard it parroted too many times. How backwards are we going when we don't have our own fire department in Cosmopolis? Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Any other comments from the public? Hearing none. Thank you, everyone. 8:18. Call the meeting to a close.